Well, hello, friends. Welcome to Money Matters, your place for financial sanity and serenity. I'm your host, Mark Martella, and what we're going to talk about today is doing that dreaded car purchase finance negotiations. I recently had the misfortune of having to purchase another car for my daughter to help her out with that. And it just really was the typical unpleasant experience. But before we get into that, for those of you who are new to the show, again, I'm Mark Martella. By trade, I'm a bankruptcy attorney. And what I like to try to do is try to help people avoid bankruptcy by giving them tips and tools to take control of their finances. This is episode 28 of this show. And if you go to the Money Matters website, markmartella.com, you can see past shows, you can see past radio episodes with all great tips. Most importantly, I have a lot of free resources on the website, including the Ultimate Budget Tool. And I also have the radio show broadcast with my 5-step financial sanity solution. So if you're looking for help in getting out of debt, please go to the website, markmartella.com, and you'll find a lot of great resources, and that's the Money Matters website. But again, today what we're going to talk about is financing that car. And if you have any questions, please shoot them to me. One of the reasons I changed this at night is so I can look at my laptop and see the language a lot better than looking at my little iPhone 3 feet away. I couldn't see anything. So what happened was, unfortunately, my daughter was driving home at night in one of those bad rainstorms we had a couple of weeks ago and hit a deer carcass, totaled her car. And so we went through the process of getting a new car, also still dealing with insurance. Again, the car was totaled. But before I get into the tips, there's some just preliminary thoughts that I have when you're looking at a car. And, the first one is you really need to change your mindset about what a car is. I mean, the reality is a car is just to get you from point A to point B. Everything else is extras. Everything else is to satisfy our ego. The more we spend on it, the better our ego feels. But after a few months, the new carness and those thrills kind of go away. So really think about that. There's a story about Mercedes-Benz, and one of their marketers was asked, well, how long is your typical marketing campaign? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? And his response was, no, our marketing campaign is 30 years. They start to focus on you when you're a young child, so that when you're 30, 35, 40 years old and in a financial position to get a car, you've been brainwashed for all those years. And I was shocked with some of their commercials this holiday season where they blatantly, openly admitted that, where you saw the little kid with the poster of the Mercedes and looking outside each year until he's 40 years old, and there's that Mercedes magically sitting outside in his driveway. So that's just part of the manipulation that we're all subject to. And you go into a new car dealership and look at those new cars and sit in it and smell in it, you get sucked in. It's very easy, not hard to sell the actual car. Now, again, another thing I need you to get in mind, and I know a couple of people out there that are going to be mad at me when I say this because they just bought new cars, but never, ever buy a new car. As soon as you drive it off that lot, it's going to drop anywhere from 10 to 20%. It's just not worth it. You can get a used car, especially here in Southwest Florida, under 10,000 miles, maybe 2 years old, even less, and you get the warranties for the mileage from the date when it was put into service, if it's a part of a 36 to 60 month warranty. So don't buy a new car. Buy a used car. Unless you're a Buffett, and that's Warren Buffett or Jimmy Buffett, don't buy a new car. It's just a waste of money, unless you just like throwing away money. And then finally, it should go without saying, but research the prices. I mean, there's so many different resources out there to have a real firm idea of what the prices are and what cars are going for. But more importantly, research reliability. There's no sense and getting a good deal on a car where you're going to have to pump a lot of money into repairs. So, you can go into Consumer Reports. You can see what the most reliable cars are and what cars are not reliable. And, what good is a 100,000 mile warranty if it's in the shop every few months? You need that reliability to get you to work. So again, it's just three concepts. A car is although society and Madison Avenue wants us to think of it as a status symbol, you need to think of it as a mode of transportation. If you're in Florida, you need air conditioning, maybe a little music, but other than that, everything else is a luxury. So those are the three general ideas. So now let's get to the heart of it, the negotiating tips. And the first one, and it's so important, and I see this in my bankruptcy practice so much. People overspend for their cars. My recommendation is not to spend more than 5% of your gross income. So I'm going to use round numbers to make it easy. So let's say you make $60,000 a year, so that your monthly income, your gross income, is $5,000 a month. If we take 5% of that, that's $250 a month. That should be your maximum payment. You need to know that going in. So now it depends upon how much money you have to put down as far as what kind of a car you can afford. Depending upon the interest rate, let's say 4% interest rate, you could probably borrow around $14,000. So if you're looking at a $25,000 car and only have $1,000 and you make $60,000 a year, you're going to go over what you should be spending on your car. And what I see so many times, whether it's a millennial or even couples in their 40s and 50s, they may make $50,000, $60,000 a year, and they'll have combined car payments of $900 to $1,000, and they wonder why they can't make ends meet, why they're buried in credit card debt. You keep in mind, when you go to the car dealer, they don't care about what you can afford. They care about what you qualify for. And there's enough lenders out there, and second tier and third tier lenders, just like when we had the mortgage crisis. It's the same thing in the auto industry. There's somebody out there who will loan you money to purchase a car. But just because they're going to loan you that amount of money doesn't mean you can afford it. So tip number one is have a game plan going in. Again, one of the things that I recommend, so you can intelligently know what you're doing, and when you're negotiating with the car salesman, is have one of these apps. There's so many apps you can get on your phone that gives you what it is. It has you put in the loan amount, you put the interest rate, and you put the number of years, and boom, it gives you the payment, it gives you the monthly interest. So if they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes, you can plug in the numbers. And I had to pull this out in my most recent negotiation. So that's tip number one. Tip number two, and I wanted to, strangle my daughter when she did this, is she got to the car dealership and was looking at cars, and she just told them, I can afford $250 a month. Never tell them what you can afford, because now they're going to back in that payment. They'll figure out a way. They're going to max out what they can make on it and back it in. When you're negotiating, figure out what you can afford. I'm going to use the same example. You make $60,000 a year, your payment shouldn't be more than $250. If that's the payment you're looking for, don't tell them that, because that's going to be their starting point, and they're going to coerce you and get you up higher, because they're going to tell you how much you love the car and all the great things, and you're going to save so much money on gas that'll make up the difference. All kinds of BS. If you can afford $250, start off to say the max you can afford is $210, $215. Because believe me, they're going to go to $250. But if you've done your research, if you've done the numbers, you will know, based upon the interest rate, based upon how much you're borrowing, what the payment should be. So, real important. Never tell them how much you can afford when you're doing the negotiations. Next, tip number three. What they're going to do is they're going to come out and they're going to come back with a sheet and give you these different scenarios of what the different payments were. So I was upfront with the salesman. I said, I'm doing a deal for my daughter. Her payment's $188. She can't afford more than $200. That's the max. And we looked at the car, and I knew we can get it for probably about 210. And so that's what I was looking for. He comes back with a payment of $275. I laughed at him. I said, "You're not even in the ballpark. Give me a break." So he goes back, and we play this game back and forth to the point where I said, "Look, I want to know what you're charging me for the car, what the interest rate, and how much I'm borrowing with this." And demand that. And they have to give it to you. And here's what you have to watch out for, too, is the added on cost. Make sure when you demand what that price is, it includes the taxes, it includes the tags, it includes their dealer prep fees, whatever other BS they have to add on that. You want to know exactly what it's going to be, what your interest rate is, and how much you're borrowing. And does that fit within your payment? You have to be willing to stand up and walk out. If you stand up and walk out and they're pulling your chain, they're gonna work with you. Ultimately, if you know what the fair price should be, if you know where your interest rate should be, you know how much you can afford to borrow, you should be able to get the price that you want. Of course, depending upon your credit and depending upon your interest rate, that changes how much you can afford. One of the issues is, if you can get a loan at 5%. In my example, borrowing $14,000 at 5%, you're going to be in that 250 range. If your interest rate is 9%, that's going to be about $290 a month. And the other thing they're going to try to do is extend the loan to get your payment lower. You need to know what payments, how many years you want to do it. 6, you're doing 75-month loans to get that payment down. Yes, you're getting your payment down, but you're paying a lot more interest over the life of the loan. So again, number 3, demand to see what you're paying and what all the terms are. Number 4, biggest mistake people make is discussing the trade. What are you going to give me for my trade? Well, that opens up a whole nother door for them to play with the numbers, because what they're going to give you for the trade, they're going to make it sound fantastic, but that's because the price on the car is so high. So they take it off the trade or they add the value to the trade, but they're not going to negotiate on the price on the car, because they say, "Oh, look how much we gave you for the trade, and we're giving you $1,000 over book value," and then their imaginary books that they create. Again, don't negotiate those things together, and don't ever roll over a loan to get another car. I just had a client who came to see me, again, making about $3,000 a month. Okay, she'd only have a payment of about $150 a month. Her payment was $571 for a car worth $17,000. So when I see that, I said, "Okay, so you rolled over a loan?" "Yeah, I had a Camaro and I turned it into an Altima. I thought I'd get a more practical car." You got a more practical car at a $571 payment that you can't afford. So in this bankruptcy consult, I told her, "Well, now's your opportunity to give up the car, get out of this loan, get out of being upside down $14,000, and get a fresh start." Response is, "Oh no, I can't give up the car." Well, she's able to afford a $571 car payment because she's living at home with her parents. This particular case, her parent was with her, and I said, "Well, she's going to be living with you for a while, because there's no way you can afford to have a $571 payment on a $30,000 income and expect to live on your own." So don't roll over those car loans. It just doesn't make sense, but they're going to be happy to give you that loan. Number 5, so you've gone through this whole process. You've done everything right. You got the car you want at the payment that you want, and then they sit down to do the financing. And that's where there's the last shot to suck a little more blood out of you, get that pound of flesh out of you. And they're going to offer you all kinds of things. They give you this premium package, and they tell you how important it is to, have this special polish on your car. And the worst thing to do is to prepay for oil changes, because you're paying interest on the oil changes if you're financing the oil changes. So you got to be upfront and say no to all of that. The only thing you might want to consider is the gap insurance. And again, it depends upon how much you're financing. If you're putting 50% down, I wouldn't get gap insurance. If you're financing, 99% of it, then you may want gap insurance. And for those of you who don't know what gap insurance covers the fair market value of a vehicle should it be totaled and what you owe on it. So at the time, if you were unfortunate enough to get into a car accident where the car was totaled and the fair market value of the car was $7,000 and you owe $9,000, that gap insurance would cover that $2,000. Otherwise, you're responsible for those $2,000, and that's a lot to come out with if you now also have to replace your car and didn't have that emergency fund. And again, one of the big things I stress is that you need to have that emergency fund. That's for another show. If you want to learn more about that, again, you can look at the Money Matters website at markmartello.com. So those are the 5 tips. Again, real quickly to review. 1, don't spend more than 5% of your monthly gross income on your car payment. Know what your payment you can afford going in and have a game plan to get that. Never tell them how much you can afford for a payment. Start about 10 to 20% lower. Never demand to see what they're charging you. You want to see exactly what their car price is, adding on the taxes, insurance, not the insurance, but the taxes, the tags, and any dealer prep fee that they build in now that they say they can't negotiate away. Never discuss the trade-in until you have that price on your car, and then you may want to discuss with them what they're going to give you for a trade. And never roll over a loan into a new car so that you're upside down on that new car. And then finally, don't buy the add-ons on the end, just extra money to suck you in, and they make more money. And obviously that finance guy is making commissions on that. So don't fall for that, other than possibly gap insurance. Again, that's an insurance that ultimately, if you need it, can save you a lot of money. So if you enjoyed the show and you'd like to learn more tips and tools to help you either get out of debt or stay out of debt or build a nest egg and have some good habits financially, go to the Money Matters website. It's at, again, www.markmartello.com, and there's a whole bunch of free resources, including my ultimate budget tool to help you figure out where you're at. If you have questions you'd like to ask me, don't want to ask them publicly, send me an email. It's simply mark@markmartello.com, and I'll be happy to answer your emails. If there's a topic you'd like me to talk about, shoot me an email, let me know what that is, and we'll see if we can get a show on that. So again, hopefully, if you're looking for a car, you'll do these tips. You'll be prepared. Again, you're going into a battle against a professional. You're an amateur. Just picture it as if you're going up against a professional pitcher and you're trying to get a hit. These guys know all the tricks of the trade, all the things to manipulate you. So you need to be strong. You need to be willing to just stand up and start walking out if you're not getting the price that you need, because you know what your payment is. So again, I'm Mark Martello. Thanks for joining me this evening. And remember, you have the power to choose to live a debt-free, stress-free life. Have a good night.